So you grew up in Tennessee, right? Lexington, Tennessee?
Lexington, Tennessee. Yeah, it's a little town sets halfway between Memphis and Nashville.
Okay. Two hotbed music towns.
Yeah, about 20 miles northwest of where I grew up, Carl Perkins lived, and about 20 miles southwest of where I lived, Eddie Arnold lived. So
Wow.
there's a lot of music in that little area right
So
there.
geographically speaking, you were kind of destined to be in music, weren't you?
I don't know, I come from a family of musicians. My mother was a good musician, and I had an uncle who was an excellent uh, guitar, bass, fiddle, everything, anything that had strings on it, he could play. And he kind of when he saw when I was a little kid, he saw I kind of was had a knack for music. He started just if he had to go somewhere to play, he'd come by my house and pick me up and take me with him. And I kind of grew up riding around with him and learning how to play the guitar, and him telling me when I was doing something wrong.
I was reading a little bit about you. He was basically the only male figure in your life at the time, wasn't he?
Yeah, yeah, really. My mom and dad got divorced when I was about three, I guess, and we lived in a real small little community outside of Lexington there, and I lived with my mother and my grandmother and my two sisters.
Mm-hmm.
I later had another. When my mom remarried, we had another kid. So I had another sister later on. But and my uncle, the guitar player uncle, he lived just about a half a mile up the road from us. So we were all together all the time, pretty much.
And so you're just surrounded by girls really your whole life. You have two daughters now too, right? So
I have I have three daughters.
yeah, three daughters. Yeah.
I have three daughters, six grandchildren, and we just had our first great grandson.
Wow. Congratulations.
Yeah, he's an awesome little guy.
And so, speaking of your mom got a Willie Nelson cut in her 90s, I heard. We were talking with Marla on the show not too long ago, and that's just insane. That's so
Yeah,
cool.
my mom was a really excellent harmonica player, and when I first started working producing records for Willie, I played him some stuff with my mom playing harmonica on it, and he just absolutely loved her harmonica playing. And he talked to her on the phone every once in a while, and he told her if she ever wanted to go on the road, he had a bunk for her on the bus.
That's amazing.
And so, she one day she gave me a book with some poems. She said it was some poems she had written, and it was, I went through there and read them all, and uh, she didn't have anything recorded or anything. It was just in the book, you
Yeah.
know. And this one song called "Little House on the Hill," and when I read that, I thought, man, that's really good, So uh, I talked to my mom about it, and she had a melody in her head. She didn't play it, but she sang it to me, and I made her sing into my iPhone actually, and so I got a rough version from her of the melody to her poem,
Mm-hmm.
and I went upstairs at my house and made a little guitar vocal tape of the song, and I just texted it to Willie, and he's in about 15 minutes he answered me back and he said, "I love this. Let's cut it."
Nice. That's amazing.
So we cut it.
So
She,
three,
she,
three.
I think she was 92
That's
when that
insane.
happened.
Yeah, three generations of cannons have had a Willie Nelson cut.
That's right. I never thought about that, but that's true.
Yeah, it is true. It's just, yeah, the Cannon family has done Willie proud for sure, right?
Yeah, well, he's been all right to us too.
Oh, I imagine. I imagine. So speaking of your dad wasn't in your life much, but even in somebody's absence, you can learn lessons from people, right? So, what are some lessons that you learned from your parents that you still kind of hold dear today?
Oh, I really don't have memories of my father until I was like 16 years old.
Right.
The first time I remember seeing him vividly, I was 16.
Mm-hmm.
So to say I learned a lot off of him was, I can't. If I did, I forgot it.
Mm-hmm.
you know. But my mom, that was a different story because we grew up. We knew how to love each other. You know, and I'd say that's probably the biggest lesson that I ever learned is to love the ones you love and learn to love the ones you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so we had a real simple, uh, poor lifestyle. I mean, we lived out in the sticks, man. I mean, we didn't have a toilet.
Mm-hmm.
Our toilet was an outhouse. Until I was in the seventh grade.
So
And
you definitely learned to live without then growing up.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. We lived without, but I didn't know we lived without because
Mm-hmm. Because that's
that's
what you
really
knew. That's what you
what
knew.
we knew. You
Yeah.
know.
So you mentioned some of your influences. Now, growing up kind of halfway between Memphis and Nashville, it would seem like you either kind of matriculate towards the Memphis kind of blues and jazz vibe or the Nashville traditional country vibe. Obviously, you, looking back, chose country. But was there influences from both towns as a youngster?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I loved when Sun Records became a thing, and I mean, I love listening to Johnny Cash, and Carl Perkins was one of my absolute heroes.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize he just lived down the road. Uh, but I mean, Carl Perkins, Elvis, of course, and then on the other end, I listened to the Opry as every time it was on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can't remember not listening to the Grand Ole Opry.
Yeah, so WSM live. I remember traveling the country a lot. I would always kind of make sure that my route took me within the airwaves of WSM. Like if I had to go northeast to southwest or wherever I was going, I would try to make sure I was within that listening area on the trip because yeah,
Oh yeah,
WS.
it would. You could pick it up for hundreds and
Yeah,
thousands of miles, and
yeah,
then you go 20 miles from Nashville, and you couldn't hear it.
it wouldn't
It was,
work. Yep. Mm-hmm. Very
and
true.
that's kind of the way it was. We were 100 miles from Nashville, and I never could listen to the opera all the way through because it would fade in,
Yep.
fade out. You get all that static and all that junk,
Mm-hmm.
but it was worth waiting for it to pass.
And that's how
Cause
you learned about new artists back in the day too, right? Like just
oh
listening to
yeah,
those kinds of shows.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.